You see, our Catholic morality is rooted strongly in the ancient philosophy of the Greeks. So when we look at the ancient philosophy of the Greeks, we understand, for example, Plato saw that there was really three parts to the human being. There was the soul, which we could also say, from our Christian perspective, is the being. And then there was the rational part, which in the Christian world we'll call the intellectual part. And then there was the appetitive part, the part filled with the desires of the human body. So you've got these three parts. And he would say, Plato would say, that the soul is always trying to keep those two parts, which he represented it as horses, it's like horses pulling a chariot, in control. And one would always try to overpower the other, but he tried to keep them in balance. Well, the thing is, in the Christian understanding of those three elements that I just spoke to you about, there's an understanding that the more we give to the appetitive part more than it needs, the less that we are able to give to the intellectual part what it needs, and so the appetitive part overtakes the intellectual part. When the intellectual part is overtaken, then it is closed off to God. And it's through the intellectual part that we are open to the Lord. I'll talk about that in a second. So the message was not simply, well, be a good person so you can go to heaven. It was to grow deeper in the wisdom of the Lord. And the way we grow deeper in the wisdom of the Lord is to be focused on those things that help us to grow in our understanding of the wisdom of God, which goes through reason to the other side. It doesn't stop just at reason, but it goes to a deeper level than reason, to that profound reality, which is divine wisdom. So, for example, what happens is St. Paul teaches in the second verse of the 12th chapter of Romans is that what we're called to do is have a renewal of our mind. And throughout the Bible, but especially in the New Testament, we see this whole understanding of being open to God's wisdom. So the more we open up to God's wisdom, we see the world from a whole different perspective and a deeper understanding. But we can't do that if we choose to be focused on that which is earthly instead of that which is open to what is divine. And if we focus all our energies on giving the body what it wants, then we're not going to have the energies to seek the greatest mysteries of the universe that we find through Christ to the Father. So it's that dynamic, because the more we come to understand the greatest of wisdom, the more it'll affect the way we live our lives. That, as you can see, is more profound than good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. All the philosophers would talk about building good habits. This especially you can find in Aristotle. All the philosophers throughout the history to the present would talk about building good habits. And in building good habits, you develop that discipline to grow intellectually. When you put it within the Christian circles, then you understand that the new habits are involved in focusing not on worldly things, but focusing on the things that are above, as St. Paul says. And in that way, you grow intellectually in the wisdom of God. And that changes your whole focus. And that, St. Maximus the Confessor teaches, is where your greatest joys will be found. So as you can see, Christian morality is not about, well, do good so you can go to heaven. It means, no, grow in the wisdom of the Lord by getting out of your way anything that causes you to spend energy on something that doesn't enable you to open yourself to the greatest of joys in the world. Now, that doesn't mean you eliminate both. It's kind of like that big pyramid that the U.S. government puts out for what is nutrition. And, say, well, I'm not going to eat fats or sugars. Well, then you'll get sick, because you're supposed to have fats and sugars, but you're not supposed to have a reverse pyramid of them. You have to have them all in their proper order. Well, it's the same thing. You have everything within its proper order, and so you give the body what it needs, but not what it wants, so that you have the energy to give to the mind what it needs, and that balance will give you the greatest of joys to discover the wisdom that comes from above, the wisdom that we learn through Christ, and the deeper levels of the wisdom that is taught in the New Testament. So, when you're understanding good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell, and that's just the way it works, you're misunderstanding the Christian life altogether. It's more profound than that. And that's the element of the Christian life we really have to start teaching in our parishes and in our schools. That element that says, open yourselves to the greatest wisdom, which is the wisdom from on high, the divine wisdom through Christ. God bless you.